Sunday morning, 10:42 a.m. I was just pouring my coffee when my phone buzzed with a notification that changed everything I thought I knew about my financial security. It was a single text from my bank, and it didn't just ruin my day. It forced me to realize I'd been making a massive mistake for the last 3 years. It wasn't a fraud alert. It wasn't an overdraft warning. It was just a routine low balance notice, the kind that pops up after a mortgage payment clears. And the strange part is, there was more money in that account than there'd been at almost any other point in my adult life. So why did one text send my heart rate up like I was 22 again and staring at a negative balance? By the end of this video, you'll understand the specific dollar threshold where enough quietly turns into still not enough, and why that number has almost nothing to do with your actual income. My name is Ely, and I spend way too much time thinking about how people in the US experience money psychologically. If you're someone who earns a normal income, maybe even more than you used to, but still doesn't feel financially secure, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Because what I'm about to walk through isn't a story about bad budgeting. It's a story about how the human brain reacts to money in a modern economy that was never designed with our psychology in mind. And once you see the pattern, you start noticing it everywhere in your own life. Here's the thing about that text message. My balance that Sunday was actually higher than it had been 3 years earlier, back when I was making $52,000 a year and felt, weirdly, calmer about money than I did now making $81,000. On paper, that makes no sense. More income should mean more security. Now look, this is where most personal finance advice completely falls apart, because it treats money as a math problem, when for most people it's actually a nervous system problem. Let's do the math first, because the math matters. Say you go from $52,000 to $81,000. After taxes, that's roughly an extra $1,700 to $1,900 a month in your pocket, depending on your state and withholding. That should feel like a windfall. But somewhere in that same stretch, rent went up, a car payment replaced a paid-off car, maybe a kid started daycare, and suddenly that extra $1,800 a month isn't sitting in savings. It's already spoken for before it lands. Walk through it with me the way it actually happens, in small, individually reasonable steps. You get promoted, and the first thing that shifts isn't some big reckless purchase, it's usually something modest. Maybe you stop driving the 15-year-old car with the check engine light and get something with a $380 monthly payment instead. That feels responsible, not indulgent. A few months later, the apartment you've been in since college starts to feel cramped now that you're not splitting it with a roommate. So you move somewhere $400 a month more expensive, closer to work, nicer building. Also reasonable. None of these decisions, on their own, look like the problem. But stack 4 or 5 of them across 18 months, and the raise that was supposed to build a cushion has been fully absorbed by a slightly upgraded version of the same life, with the exact same amount of breathing room you had before. Economists have a name for this, lifestyle creep, but I think that name undersells what's actually happening, because it's not really about lifestyle. It's about a psychological reset point. Here's what most people don't realize. Your brain doesn't evaluate money in absolute terms. It evaluates money relative to a baseline, and that baseline moves almost every time your income moves. This is basically the same mechanism behind why lottery winners report surprisingly ordinary happiness levels a year or two after winning. The brain adapts to the new normal shockingly fast, and once it adapts, the new normal doesn't feel abundant anymore. It just feels like the floor. So when something threatens that floor, even something as small as a low balance text after a mortgage payment, your body reacts like the floor is falling out from under you, because psychologically, it is. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I still have savings, I still have a cushion, so why does one notification spike my anxiety like this? This is where it gets interesting. The Federal Reserve has run a household economic survey for years asking Americans a very simple question: whether they could cover an unexpected $400 expense using cash or its equivalent. And historically, more than a third of respondents said no, they couldn't, without borrowing or selling something. That statistic gets quoted constantly, but the part people miss is that this isn't just a low-income phenomenon. A meaningful share of people earning 6 figures report the exact same underlying stress, because the number in the bank account was never really the thing keeping them calm. The feeling of margin was. And margin is fragile in a way that raw income numbers are not. Think of it like a bathtub with the drain slightly open. It doesn't matter how hard you turn up the faucet if the drain is open just as wide. You can watch the water level rise for a second, feel good about it, and then watch it slowly settle right back down to where it always sits. Most people spend their entire career turning up the faucet, chasing raises, promotions, side income, and wondering why the water level in the tub never actually climbs. Nobody ever taught them to look at the drain. The drain, in this metaphor, is what psychologists sometimes call hedonic adaptation paired with social comparison. The American Psychological Association has tracked money as the single most commonly cited source of stress in the country for over a decade, consistently outranking work, relationships, and even health in a lot of years. And that's not because Americans are earning less than they used to in absolute terms. Real wages have actually grown modestly over long stretches according to Bureau of Labor Statistics data. It's because the reference point for doing fine keeps sliding upward, usually pulled by whoever we're comparing ourselves to, which today isn't just the neighbor with the nicer car, it's a curated highlight reel of strangers online who all appear to be doing better than they actually are. And the comparison problem is sneakier than people give it credit for, because it doesn't announce itself. Nobody sits down and consciously thinks, I need to earn what my coworker earns to feel okay. It shows up sideways. You see a friend post about a kitchen renovation and suddenly your own perfectly functional kitchen feels dated, even though an hour earlier you weren't thinking about your kitchen at all. A coworker mentions their new SUV in passing, and for the rest of the afternoon your car, the one that's been running fine for 6 years, feels like evidence that you're falling behind somehow. None of that is really about the kitchen or the car. It's the brain quietly updating its definition of normal based on the most recent data point it received, and once normal shifts, everything below that new line starts to feel like lack, even when nothing about your actual life changed in the last hour. If this is starting to feel familiar, that's exactly why I make these videos. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because we're about to get into the part that actually changes how you handle this. So here's the uncomfortable realization I had, sitting there with my coffee going cold. That text didn't ruin my Sunday because my finances were actually in danger. It ruined my Sunday because I had built my entire sense of security around a number instead of a system. I had a bigger income, sure, but I had zero defined threshold for what safe actually meant. No specific dollar figure I could point to and say, if I have this much sitting untouched, I am, by definition, okay. Without that number, every fluctuation in the account, every dip after a bill clears, becomes emotionally identical to an actual crisis, even when it isn't one. This is the mistake I think a lot of people making $50,000, $75,000, even $100,000 a year are quietly making. They're optimizing the income side of the equation endlessly and completely neglecting to define what enough actually looks like on the security side. Without that definition, more income just raises the stakes of every purchase decision instead of lowering your anxiety, because the lifestyle expands to fill whatever room the income creates, and the cushion never gets built on purpose. It only gets built by accident, if at all. So what do you actually do with this? Not vague advice like budget better, because if that worked, this problem wouldn't be this common. The first step is picking an actual number for your bare minimum floor, something like 1 month of essential expenses, rent, groceries, insurance, minimum debt payments, sitting in an account you don't touch for anything else. Not a goal of 3 to 6 months right away. That number is so far off for most people that it becomes discouraging and gets abandoned within a few weeks. 1 month first. That's the number where your nervous system starts to get real evidence that you're not one bad week away from disaster. Second, and this is the part most people skip, you have to separate your "am I safe" question from your "am I doing well" question, because right now most people use the exact same bank balance to answer both. And that's what makes a routine low balance text feel like a crisis instead of a Tuesday. If your safety number lives in a separate account that you basically forget exists, then your main checking account can go up and down all month long without triggering that same fight or flight response, because your brain has a different place to check for the actual answer to "am I okay?" This sounds almost too simple to matter, but the separation itself is doing real psychological work. When there's only one number, every dip in that number gets interpreted by your nervous system as a threat to your entire financial existence. whether it's a $60 grocery run or an actual emergency. When there are two numbers, one that's allowed to move freely and one that isn't touched at all, your brain finally has a stable reference point to check against. The checking account can swing from $2,200 down to $300 right before payday, the same way it always has. And instead of that swing triggering panic, it just registers as, that's what this account is supposed to do, because the real answer to "am I safe?" now lives somewhere else entirely. Third, pick one comparison to consciously opt out of. Not all of them. That's not realistic, but one. Maybe it's the version of yourself who feels behind because a coworker mentioned a new car. Maybe it's a family member whose spending habits you don't actually know the full financial picture behind. The goal isn't to stop noticing what other people have. That's not something willpower fixes. The goal is to stop letting one specific comparison set the bar for what your own enough is supposed to look like. And here's the part that actually surprised me the most, going back to that Sunday text. Once I built that separate 1 month floor, sitting untouched, low balance notifications basically stopped bothering me, even though my day-to-day account still fluctuates exactly the same way it always did. The math didn't change much at all. Maybe a couple $100 moved into a different account. But the psychology changed completely because I finally had a concrete answer to the question my brain had been anxiously asking every single time that phone buzzed. That's really the whole point of this channel. It's not that you're bad with money, and it's not that you need to earn some dramatically higher number before you're allowed to feel secure. Most people chasing a bigger salary as the fix for financial anxiety are solving the wrong side of the equation entirely. The number in your bank account was never really the source of the stress. The absence of a defined floor was. Build that floor first, even a small one, and you'll be surprised how much quieter your Sunday mornings get.